Oh yes, tails. I was going to go over tails. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so the main difference in terms of animal spines and human spines is that this is the pelvis. An animal spine continues on in a straight line. This is the pelvis. The human tailbone curves under, which helps with our erect, straight up and down gait. What? Yes, you're very funny. So, you have to take a bit of artistic license when you're placing the tail on a human, because, or on an anthro rather, because if you were to actually put the tail where the tailbone is, if this is a butt, that's a great butt, the tail would be between the legs all the time, and would not have much bend or flex. So, people put it in different places depending on how they feel is correct. I generally feel right at the top of the butt crack. And, any higher than that, and it tends to look like it's coming out of the middle of the back. Any lower than that, and it tends to look like it's coming out of the butthole. So, generally, yeah, at the top of the butt. And for, dragons and stuff, when the tail's a lot thicker, I tend to sort of have the butt deform around the tail. And have it go up higher on the spine a bit. As for multiple tails, I have no freaking clue. Just do whatever looks right to you, whether you want to have them multiple tails spreading from one base, or whether you want to have a bunch of bases making for a very wide tail base area. Whatever you think works. Jay Naylor did a great tutorial on butts. I won't dig it up right now because it's not safe for work, but if you want to just look through his gallery, you should be able to find it on Fur Affinity. If his gallery is still there on Fur Affinity, he might have moved to Weasel, I'm not sure. How do you shade butts? Butts are basically just a sphere, more or less, a slightly deformed sphere, so shade accordingly. It's just two spheres. One thing that's important to keep in mind is that when you're using shading, what you're doing is modeling the form. You're showing the shape of what the shadow is moving over. So, don't just follow the lines as closely as possible with the shading. You want to actually be thinking of the three-dimensional form of what you're adding the shadow to. I see a lot of people fall into a trap where they end up just following the edges of their line work with their shadows, and that creates a really flat look and unrealistic. And you really need to be thinking in terms of three-dimensional shapes when you're shadow shading. Scales come in a lot of different shapes and textures. My really rough way that I tend to do them is I make hatchwork. and then I make scales out of the hatchwork. But you know, scales can be pebbly, and they can be very pointy. You can have scoots, whatever you call them. But the important thing to remember is that they overlap. That's the main thing to keep in mind. Yep, definitely need to keep track of your light source. If it helps, you can draw a big arrow in the background while you're painting and then just erase it later. Also keep in mind what's going to be causing a drop shadow. If that arm is raised, maybe it's going to create a drop shadow across the back. Adding those drop shadows will really help add to the sense of realism and three-dimensionality. Just keep in mind of where things are in three-dimensional space in relation to the light source. That's why working from life can be better than working from photos sometimes, because your brain processes what you're looking at as being three-dimensional instead of a two-dimensional shape. Hair. Hair is basically just extended fur. You know, you're gonna have to do it hair by hair if you want it to look realistic. Otherwise, work with clumps. The main shapes of the hair sort of flowing together. Don't make it too spiky unless you want it to be spiky. Try to keep curved shapes in it. Yes, avoid Goku hair. I think we're just about ready to wrap up here, unless there's any last minute things.